In this episode of Special Assignment, we look at the fate of 97 primates who were so badly neglected they were starving to death. We trace their painful journey and look at whether, for the remaining monkeys, there is any hope. In December 2015, members of the public began to report the shocking health and welfare conditions of 97 exotic primates at Little Falls Garden Centre in Muldersdrift, Johannesburg. New World Primates, an online primate group, acted quickly.
Members of the public kept on reporting that there's something wrong at the tea garden. So eventually I asked Elise and CNN to go and have a look. I think it was late December or early January 2016 then. Elise phoned me, she was devastated. She was crying and carrying on and said that the monkey is half dead and the monkeys are looking very, very bad, very poor condition. So we suggested between us again that she phones the NSPCA. Elise later reported that Isabel from the NSPCA came out. They took one capuchin away. So we decided that a group of us will go to the centre and we'll speak to the owner. We got there, it was beautiful. The grass is green, it's water, the plants lush. It's really stunning. You could see the cages from far, very, very big enclosures. But as you got closer, reality, you know, you could see the monkeys didn't get food. You could see they're very skinny, parasites on them. The workers took us to a guy, he called himself Derek. And he said, yeah, he is feeding them. It's costing him 45,000 Rand a month to feed the monkeys. And we said, but we don't see food. So he said, no, he is feeding them. And we said, but we don't see them and they're in a very bad condition. Can we assist? Can we help? And he was very nice, you know, and he said, yes, we can. The day that we were there, we said to him, you know, the condition. He said, no, it's the alpha male. It's mating season, and that's why all of the monkeys are so skinny, because they fight for food. Alpha male eats first, and then the rest must wait. But we couldn't see a fat monkey. That was the alpha male.
But Derek Fourie, the manager, had no explanation for the parasites on their bodies, their listlessness, and their filthy cages and water.
So on New World Monkeys, we started a drive, and we said we need food, we need money, we need stuff like that. And then Elise would take the money, she would go and put it in. She spoke to the workers, the guys that were feeding the monkeys, and she helped them. And she said, this is how you feed the monkey, this is the type of food that you must give them. So that worked for a few weeks, but there was not really an improvement in the condition.
Where were the NSPCA in all of this?
The NSPCA were missing in action. I know a few people phoned them, contacted them. They begged them to go out to Little Falls. Nothing came of it. I think every month we phoned, I can't tell you how many phone calls we made. How we tried to do something to get them away. How do you take like 100 monkeys away? It's not possible if you don't get help from an official viewpoint.
Not knowing where else to turn, the primate group contacted IPR for help.
We first heard about the Little Falls monkeys through very concerned members of the public. We were getting emails, telephone calls. People were very concerned, saying that they were in terrible condition.
A visit to the centre confirmed the worst of the reports.
It was very traumatic because we went cage past cage past cage of thin, starving monkeys. And it was just, I really couldn't believe it. And the manager, he turned around and he said to us, so it's not that bad, is it? And I said, sir, your monkeys are starving to death. I went round the back and there were these 3 monkeys, and the one, he held out his hand to me, or she, and I said, hang on buddy, I'm coming to get you. I made that monkey a promise, and I didn't know how we were going to get it or how we were going to do this.
Over 2 weeks later, the animals were in a desperate state. Derek Foure's sister, Adelian Tuxapeus, the owner of the monkeys, is facing charges of defrauding her late husband's will. Sue claims she was in constant contact with the NSPCA, but lost faith in the organisation helping the monkeys when they failed to take decisive action. IPR got a court order and seized the monkeys from Little Falls on the 23rd of April last year. By then, only 49 remained.
It took us a long time to go in on the day of the rescue. The police wanted to make sure all the legal procedures were followed. They had to call the owner and the manager, and we had to cut the locks because they wouldn't let us in. We got 30 or so student vets. We got a whole cavalcade of people to help us get the monkeys back here safely.
What did you just do? Hit me in the face. I wasn't.
In this clip, Derek Fouree, in a black shirt, is accosting a news cameraman.
I'm protecting myself.
No, I wasn't touching you. You hit me in the face.
When I had settled everybody, medications, got everybody going, I went for a private moment. On to the back of the monkeys, and my monkey wasn't there, the one I made a promise to, and it upset my whole day. I don't know, from that point in the day I was just like, I don't know, numb.
Sorry. They were terrible. We didn't think they're going to make it. You know, if you look at the photos that I sent you, they were in terrible, terrible condition. I know they gave them Energate, things to eat. The one little baby was feeding his mummy, and the baby looked like he was the adult monkey and the mummy was the baby. She was so skinny. It was heartbreaking.
On the day that they arrived, it was very much too busy to even think. We worked a full day with about 10 minutes for lunch without stopping, so there really wasn't time to think about it. It was only at the end of the day, once everything was finished, we walked down to see the monkeys, and they were skin and bone. They looked half dead, some of them. It was too much. I mean, it was overwhelming.
As the animals arrived at IPR, vets were there to receive them.
Look at that face, everything's sunk in it. That's insane, I've never seen something like that.
The vet did everything he could to help this dying monkey, who succumbed a few minutes later.
I just want to ask Derek a few questions. If you can maybe answer me that, is why do you keep that place in such a prime condition? The green lawns, the swings and the slides for the children, for the parties. They had things to keep them busy. Why not the monkeys? They were the main attraction. Why people will have a children's party there. And then how can you have a children's party when they eat cake, they drink their cool drink, and they discard that piece of cake, and that monkey cannot reach to the grass? How can you be so cruel? How can you water the grass, but you forget to put water in the enclosure? And if you do, most of them on the floor. Doesn't make sense. And I also want to know, why didn't he sell them? When you can't feed something, half of them, in my opinion, died.
The news of the 49 rescued Little Falls monkeys who were starving to death made headlines.
The NSPCA Wildlife Protection Unit conducts routine inspections at Little Falls Nursery. Prior to the current case, the NSPCA Wildlife Unit issued warnings for contraventions witnessed, as well as recommendations to improve the welfare and well-being of the animals in their care.
Despite testimonies to the contrary, the NSPCA disputes that they were at Little Falls in January in 2016. At no point whatsoever was the NSPCA in the possession of any of the animals owned by Little Falls Nursery, nor did any animal of theirs die in our care. No contraventions in terms of the Animal Protection Act 71 of 1962 were seen, but recommendations with regard to the diet were made.
Organizations that deal with these animals, or anyone who sees concerns at a facility, should report it to us. Like I said, that we are the authority, the national authority for enforcing the Animals Protection Act, and we only know about these facilities or these concerns if it's reported to us.
IPR laid a cruelty charge against Toxopeus and Fourie. Despite photographic and eyewitness evidence, the prosecutor said the SPCA's contradictory evidence is an obstacle to fighting the case. Brett Tate, IPR's former legal counsel, said that the NSPCA was either unwilling or unable to give a statement, which seriously hampered his firm's efforts to fight the case.
During our inspections, we didn't see that the animals were in such a bad way. If the animals were in such a bad way, we would have acted immediately. It's unfortunate, and I'm going to mention, is that sometimes emotional factors come into play with organizations or inspectors that doesn't know how to interpret the law and work according to what the law allows you to do. The NSPCA believes in education before prosecution, and we have to be fair with each and every case that we deal with in order for us to get a successful prosecution if we do go to court.
The opposing parties reached a settlement. IPR agreed to release the monkeys to Eric Venter, who had bought them from Toxopeus.
I'd hardly got home and the phone started ringing from all over the world. I can't believe. A friend from Britain phoned and said, "Kerry, what have you done?" And I said, "What do you mean?" They said, "No, this place they're going to has sold animals to laboratories. They've caught wild animals on permit, wild baboons."
It's football, man. I love monkeys. Why do you think I bought them?
Really? Actually.
We shouldn't.
Eric Venter, the owner of the safari park the monkeys were sold to, had a permit to trap indigenous primates. He sold them to laboratories, including to Wits University. This footage from 1993 was taken on his farm by undercover members of South Africans Against Vivisection. A dead vervet lies in its feces, next to it, a dying vervet. A family huddles together, a dead baboon at their feet. The South Africans Against Vivisection members wrote affidavits attesting to what they saw. Academic Michelle Peckover stated that the animals were traumatized and there was acrid water but no food in the cage and a strong stench. In the lab cages, the primates had neither water nor food. Pickover's research uncovered Venter received around 75 rand a baboon and had shot them when he could not sell them. Wits University confirmed Venter supplied them with baboons over a decade ago and that they were received in good condition. They acknowledge that they still experiment on animals. In addition to owning Eventiara Wildlife Park, a zoo, Venter also owns Mpatamacha, a massive animal auction facility. On the 10th of May 2016, Eric Venter pulled out of the sale deal. IPR was offered the monkeys to purchase. It was agreed that in the event they could not raise the money, the monkeys would be returned to Toxopeus.
We really tried to raise the money. We did put it out on internet, but then their lawyers were saying this was confidential information and that it shouldn't be out there on internet, and it made it very difficult for us to raise the money without saying what it was for and mentioning amounts. Even though it is not the policy of our sanctuary to buy any monkeys, it was, we thought, the only way that we could protect them and save them.
After being hand-fed every 2 hours, the monkeys, who just over 2 weeks earlier looked like they were too far gone to recover, started to come back to life.
I remember the first day, it was quite exciting when we saw them starting to interact, and the one morning we went down there and they were all playing. It was really such an amazing experience because we really did nurse them, so to speak, back to health, and it was just an absolute delight to see them begin to flourish and actually enjoy their lives.
On the 17th of May this year, Toxopeus and Venter arrived with a warrant of execution and seized the monkeys. Prior to this, IPR was represented pro bono by law firm Tabax under attorney and partner Brett Tate. Declining an on-camera interview, Tate says his firm did whatever it could to ensure that the monkeys would not be returned to Little Falls. He resigned his legal counsel when IPR disagreed with his advice and did not want to adhere to the court order to hand over the monkeys. Tate said that if he assisted them in breaching the court order, he would have effectively procured their imprisonment and was left without a choice but to resign his services.
We've never seen the affidavit and we're still searching for it.
We were starting to prepare the food top-ups for all the monkeys when all the vehicles turned up, the trucks, the cars. They'd got boxes to take all the monkeys away. We had no idea they were coming. It was just a normal day's work, 1 minute, and the next it was suddenly everyone on alert trying to work out what was going on, what we needed to do.
While Venter's team was capturing the monkeys, a Capuchin named Davy escaped. Unable to outwit human cruelty, Davy was caught and killed a few days later by some locals in the area.
These monkeys were taken in by IPR. They've been fed by IPR. Veterinary care has been provided, as it should be, obviously. But there's still a cruelty case pending. That cruelty case hasn't been heard yet, and the monkeys have already left IPR. I don't understand. It seems like the legal system is letting animals down hugely.
You cannot be serious.
The following is footage of Venter's crew capturing the monkeys from IPR. While IPR is trying to help the monkeys in Venter Zoo, experts have also raised concerns about the increase in the trade in exotic wildlife in our borders. In South Africa, exotic breeds are especially vulnerable because of the lack of laws protecting them. A proliferation of breeders sell babies into the pet trade for big profits, leaving the animals open to abuse.
And you can basically just breed and do whatever you want to, and you can trade with them as much as you want to. And isn't it just ironic that we are one of the biggest exporters of exotic animals? Not our own animals, exotic animals. And the reason for that is because there's no control. You know, you can basically do whatever you want, it's okay. Monkeys are removed from their mothers, and what the breeders then do is they will get somebody from the outside who is not known to the monkey mom to come and remove the baby from the monkey's back, so that the mother will still trust the breeder even after this has happened. And this often happens when the baby monkeys are like maybe 2, 3, 4 days old. Imagine the trauma having to lose her child time after time after time, just so that some person can have a monkey in their home and dress the monkey up in a dress and a nappy and whatever.
Often, in the process of pulling the baby from its mother, limbs are broken or torn off.
The main problem is that people get babies as monkeys, and then the monkeys never learn correct behavior patterns, and come sexual maturity they become very, very aggressive because they've been raised in isolation from other monkeys, and they've never learned how to behave correctly. So 90% of the pet monkeys that are hand-reared become aggressive and start attacking their owners. And the other reason is that they're terribly destructive.
Kerry described a visit to see the Little Falls monkeys at Venter Zoo.
It was the males that got me. They came up to the front of the cage and they looked at me and they were like, "Can you help me?" They were looking and they were so miserable and they had runny eyes, runny noses, and they'd split the family groups. And Sylvia, one of the moms, was sick. We didn't even know if she was alive because she was in the back of the box. So my friend took photographs with her cell phone to see, and when he played them back we could see that she'd been moving, so we knew she was alive. And the last time I went in, the monkeys had definitely deteriorated quite a lot. They have dropped in weight quite considerably. The one monkey, Bobtail, his coat's so matted, and I'm sure that's because he's over grooming and he's putting urine on it just simply from stress.
In mid-July, 2 months after the monkeys left IPR, I visited Venter Zoo undercover to see the condition of the monkeys. It was a warm day, and these thirsty tigers were licking this empty metal container and turning it over. There was no staff to be seen. We reported this to management, and they said they had drained their dam and would go and give them water. Several other animals also had no water in their enclosures. I showed footage I took at the zoo to wildlife expert Karen Trendler.
You should have a much bigger thing for a tiger, and it should also be secured into the ground so that they can't knock it over. Even if they filled up that small water trough, it wouldn't be adequate water for 3 tigers under hot conditions with no shade.
Karen told me about her overall concerns for the monkeys.
When you see animals with patchy fur, with dirty fur, with bare areas of skin, there's an indication that something is wrong. And it could be parasites, it could be food, it could be any number of factors, and it's difficult to say what it is just from looking at this footage, but it definitely requires further investigation. Trays where the food bowls go that have got metal with very, very sharp edges that can cause injuries. And then also what is disturbing, having worked with a number of captive facilities, is that there are no barriers between the public access to the monkeys and the monkey access to you. Those barriers are a requirement both for the animals' protection and for the humans' protection.
Every time I was there, I saw food bowls that had fallen on the ground outside the cages where the monkeys couldn't reach them.
Where you've got feeding systems where the bowls are being put into and the monkeys are able to get those open and the bowls are lying outside, you have no idea whether those monkeys have knocked that food outside before they've eaten or after they've eaten. So you have no idea whether they're actually getting adequate nutrition or not.
In accordance with the court order, IPR is allowed to get a vet to check up on the monkeys once a month. Their diet sheet indicated an adequate diet, but on a number of undercover visits, images of their food showed starchy, cooked meals that looked like leftover human food. This squirrel monkey is eating fried chips.
In this case, these monkeys would be eating a lot of fruits and leaves and shrubs and flowers and things in the jungle, a jungle type setting. So when you're giving them soft cooked fruits like this, they're getting too many fats. They're probably getting preservatives and things as well, but also it's good for their teeth and their jaw muscles and everything to have harder fruits and leaves and bark and things that they can chew on.
Over a few visits to the zoo, I noticed a deterioration in the condition of a capuchin named Bobtail.
I think the footage of Bobtail is deeply, deeply disturbing. That is an animal that has an urgent need for proper veterinary evaluation. He definitely has psychological problems. Whether that's purely psychological or whether there's actually a pain element as well. And from looking at that footage, I would really like him to see a vet immediately. What came across to me overall with a lot of the monkeys' behavior is that monkeys are incredibly social animals. There's constant interaction. They get that stimulation, that interaction from one another, from their social structure. They learn to be social. That's part of their life. Is that when you look at some of those monkey groups, there's just an absence of that social interaction. And that normally happens. I mean, if you think, if you're hungry, if you're uncomfortable, if you're stressed, you're going to be less concerned about interacting and being social and more concerned just about your own needs.
Eric Venter and Adelian Toxopeus were offered the right to respond to allegations made against them in this episode. They referred me to their lawyer, who responded saying that Toxopeus vehemently denied claims of abuse and neglect. I contacted Derek Fourie for his response to allegations against him. He refused to engage with me. The Department of Agriculture and Forestry told me that there was a legislative review process that would result in new animal laws that are more proactive than the current Animal Protection Act. This, they said, in response to my questions about including exotic animals in the Act and harsher sentences for crimes against animals. These empty structures and tunnels into the trees were the living and playing ground of the Little Falls monkeys for a year. It was here that they were truly happy. They are deeply missed by IPR and the monkey community, who live with the hope that one day the sanctuary will become their permanent home.